Hello?
Hi, Tim.
Yes, hi, Nidra.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm great. Well, thank you for taking my call and agreeing to answer some questions that can help some homeowners and investors who might be struggling with selling their home or investment property. So I was able to, help you and Kate out with selling your property a few years back, but I don't believe I shared with you the time when I helped you that I was actually breaking the law. But we'll get into that, soon enough. Okay, so let's get started with some questions. If you could share with us your experience when you had your property listed on the market with the real estate company.
Well, we listed it, I believe it was in the month of August, and it was listed for like 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a number of showings. I don't remember how many anymore, but it was certainly a sufficient amount. Let's
Mm,
put it that way.
sure.
But, but we never had, well, I don't think, yeah, as I recall, we never had an offer. And so, after 6 months, why, we were wondering what we really should do. We wanted to sell the place because
Mm-hmm.
we were kind of moving on with our life into our second phase here and wanting to move to an apartment complex. Because in the meantime, we had looked at this apartment complex and we really liked it. It was a 55 age 55 and over. So
Right.
and it was brand new. So we wanted to move there and get on with our second phase of our lives.
Right. I remember when I worked with you and your dear wife, Kate. Um, as I said, I wasn't a real estate broker, at least not yet, but I was operating as a real estate investor. And I remember reaching out to you all once your property had expired. And I shared with you that I could buy your home. And I talked to you about, I'm going to sell your home because I'm an investor. But I recall you talking about, some pain points, right? That you and Kate were going through. I mean, it was both a good situation and a bad situation. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we had number one, we had a still a substantial mortgage
Mm,
on
mm-hmm.
our home, and because we had refinanced maybe over the years, maybe two times, I think it was two or three times,
Mm,
and so that mortgage was still fairly substantial. So that was one of the reasons we wanted to sell, but we also liked this apartment that we had looked at in Sun Prairie,
sure.
and I was putting them off in Sun Prairie. I think we looked at that apartment complex in like maybe October, and they said, "Well, we'll hold it for you," and they did, and they held it for me even for December, the month of December.
Mm,
And then January 1 rolled around and they would no longer hold it for us, basically. And of course, I understood that. So we ended up, I paid them for the month of January a lease. We actually signed a lease, an annual lease. So I paid them for January. And of course, I was going to be due to pay them again in February, et cetera, each month.
right.
And so at that point, we were really like paying two mortgages.
Yeah. At the time when I had, approached you on buying your home, do you remember the big issues you had with actually selling the house?
Yeah, one of the issues was the paneling in the family room. I guess through some showing, some people didn't really like the paneling, was really outdated at this point. It was
Right.
like a 27-year-old home, but we didn't want to, replace that. I guess the realtor maybe suggested at that time that maybe just take it off and repaint the wall or whatever, and
Right.
do some maintenance. It was
Mm-hmm.
still in good shape, but
Mm-hmm.
it was outdated.
That's
And
right.
then, and then I guess there were some, in McFarland there at the time, there were a number of developments around
That's right.
where they were building new homes.
That's right.
And of course, the decision for the new folks or whatever looking at homes was, do I, buy a new home or do I go and buy the 27-year-old home that Tim and Kate had? That was the two big issues.
I recall that. I mean, it was like your lovely older home, sitting in the
Yeah.
middle of all this new development going on around you. So you did have quite the competition. I remember when I came over and met with you in person, I had the contract in hand, right? you,
Yeah.
you,
Yes, you did.
you recall that meeting?
Oh, yes, I do. Oh, yes.
Yeah,
There was
and
only one meeting. That was the day.
we had the one meeting, and I was able to get it under contract and everything. But what was it you think that made you put it under contract with me that day?
Well, I saw from the beginning the confidence you and your team had in selling our home. You were very confident about that.
Hmm.
And I also saw where I could see how much you cared about helping us out.
Yeah.
Because at that time, we were, like I say, paying 2 mortgages.
Yeah, you
And so
were.
you wanted to solve our problem, and I saw that. And of course, I also knew that you had mentioned something about buying our home,
Hmm.
possibly. So there was there's kind of a whole list of things that I saw that were all positives
That's good.
about you
I,
uh,
I appreciate
and
that.
your team. So
Yeah.
that's why I guess we signed the contract with you that day
Well,
before you left.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I end up using something that's called a round robin auction, where I basically advertised the property for 3 days, and then for the next 2 days showed the property to various people who showed interest in it, and by day 5, I auctioned off the property and to the highest bidder, right? And so
Yeah.
ended up assigning, my interest over to the high bid, and we ended up closing your property there within 30 days, and so that was pretty neat because obviously I got paid for my efforts, my team, um, and you and Kate got to sell your home and didn't have to be bothered with, two mortgages or a mortgage and a rent. And obviously, the new homeowners, they got a pretty nice property for a very nice price. So it was a win-win, really, for everyone. But the only hiccup in the whole situation, which I found this out some years later. I definitely was not aware of it at the time. But when I auctioned off your house at that time, I did not realize that I was breaking the law. Because basically, in our area, you either have to own the home, need to be either a licensed real estate broker or a licensed auctioneer. And I or anyone on my team, we weren't any of those things. So, at the end of the day, I feel like, we were able to help you solve your problem. And I definitely know, one of the purposes in my life is in helping people solve their problems, and especially in this realm of real estate. So, I just don't spend a whole lot of time worrying about issues. I put more time into solving the issues. And I just am, grateful for having people like you who actually gave me and my team a chance, right? In even helping you out. So definitely appreciate that. So I hope, this information will help inspire others in selling their home, especially if they're struggling with that aspect, and to try something different, like the round robin auction. And so with that, I just want to ask if you had any final words.
Yeah, I myself and my wife, we were very grateful for your services at that time.
Mm,
We could have been sitting there another 6 months with a realtor and, with no action. And that would have been a whole year at that point.
yeah.
And here I'm making payments to the apartment complex. But so we were very grateful. I could see the confidence in you and your team.
Mm,
And it was almost, like I said, we were very grateful. We had that feeling. And it was like, wow, just the whole cloud was lifted off of our heads.
yeah, yeah.
When we heard that, yeah, this is your close date.
That's great.
And boy, when we closed that day and drove away, we took another deep breath and sigh of relief.
I
And
bet. I'm glad.
yeah, you solved the problem, and I'll be forever grateful. I really am.
Awesome. Well, I'm grateful too, and thank you so much. You and Kate were just really great people to work with, and I'm glad we were able to help solve your problem. And so, what I want to mention to the various people, homeowners out here, if you don't want to do this technique, but you're struggling with selling your home or investment property, I really encourage you to reach out to me and my team by clicking on the link below. and I'll get you connected with someone who's able to help.